No one wants the diagnosis, and we don't want that for our loved ones. But also there is still joy to be had. Learn and grow into this new chapter of your life.
Emma, thank you for joining us to talk today about your caregiving journey, which your book was honestly like so inspirational. I definitely cried reading it.
I cried writing it.
I'm sure you did, just reading, everything that you and your family have been through. I mean, it's really intense. I don't think many people had heard of frontotemporal dementia, which we're going to call FTD going forward because it's a little easier to say.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people think there's one type of dementia or there's just Alzheimer's. Like, people don't really understand the nuance. Can you just give me an example of sort of a first sign of FTD that people should watch out for in their family members?
I think so. FTD can present in 3 different ways. There's a behavioral variant, there's a language variant, and also one that affects movement. For Bruce, he was diagnosed with PPA, which is short for primary progressive aphasia, which affects language, communication, reading, writing. So for those first early signs, what I had noticed, Bruce had stuttered severely as a child and then kind of was able to manage it through his adult years. And then I noticed it starting to come back. But going back to what you said, like Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. They say that 90% of cases are usually Alzheimer's, and where 10% are like the other related dementias. But what I had learned from dementia care specialist, Teepa Snow, that there are 120 different forms of dementia.
One thing that you wrote a lot about in the book is how Bruce's other family members had really stepped up to help. What are some ways that they are doing that now and have been doing that in the whole journey?
We all just want to show up for the person that we love. What has worked for us as a team is that we are able to just see what our strengths are and how each person can then best support their dad, my husband. It takes a lot of communication. It really is teamwork. It's very hard to care for someone with dementia alone. You really need support, and it's important to rally it.
And what does self-care look like for you now? Because I know you don't have a lot of time, you don't have a lot of mental space, so how do you take care of yourself?
Early on, before we had formal caregiving, it was really hard to even think of what self-care was or what that looked like. And it was always so triggering when someone would say to me, like, how are you looking after yourself? And it's like, well, how can I look after myself? But what I've learned is that it doesn't have to be these big moments. Sometimes it's just about getting outside and just feeling the sun on my face or going for a walk around the block. Just being able to make sure that support is there so that a caregiver can just get out of the house, and connect with someone that they love, a friend, to be able to go for a walk. It doesn't, have to be a spa moment, but it can be if they want it to be. But, like I have a garden in our backyard, and for me, that's like my form of meditation, is to be able to get out there. I was like, close to my house, but still be able to get outside and plant and weed and water and watch them grow. And that feels very much in my control. So for me, it's just, that was about my own mindfulness, my own meditation. That was a way I cared for myself.
What is something that someone has done for you, like a really kind gesture that really made a big difference for you?
So I have this friend of mine, her name is Julia. It was Bruce and I's wedding anniversary, and she had heard or knew that it was coming up. And I got a text from her saying, I've left something for you at the front of your house. So I went out, and it was just like a bouquet of flowers there for us with a beautiful card, just like wishing us a really happy anniversary. And I just thought that was so beautiful and thoughtful that our anniversary wasn't looked over because of my husband and his disease, that it's still very meaningful, not just to, myself, but also to friends, and my friend, which I just thought that was a really beautiful, kind, loving gesture.
It is. It's so sweet because I think a lot of us are thinking, how can I support my friend going through a hard time? And sending flowers is such an easy thing to do.
It's so simple.
You mentioned the importance of bringing in outside help as a caregiver, and so what does that look like for you and your family?
For us, I realized that as Bruce's disease progressed, the needs changed, and we needed someone a little bit more formal. I think it's hard for a caregiver to realize that you've come to that point in a disease where you need more support, you need more help. Also with that comes like a lot of guilt. We think as caregivers, we feel like we're the only person that can do this, it's only going to be me, this is my duty. For me, there was like so much guilt around that time when I brought someone in, but it was Bruce's neurologist that woke me up and was like, you need help and you need to understand the statistics of caregivers passing sometimes before their loved one. And I just thought I had never heard that. I didn't know that. And that was such a wake-up call for me, just to be able to realize, you know what, like if I am going to try and sustain this journey, then I do need the support. And I'm not failing my person because I'm bringing in support, that it's absolutely needed. So for us, we're very fortunate. We're in a very privileged position where we can afford professional caregiving. One of the things that I had heard over and over again in my book from the specialists and experts that I bring in was that the biggest mistake that caregivers make is not asking for help and not asking for it soon enough. It is important to start rallying your friends, your family, whatever that might look like, to find some support.
Well, I wanted to show you this book that we put together in partnership with Cleveland Clinic. It's two families that have struggled with different forms of dementia. The first is Sean and Lisa. They are a fellow FTD family. And one thing you might notice, that kind of reminded me of things that you said was there they are Zooming with other people that are not in their family. They're staying connected to other people. And then this is, I think, a nurse that they brought in and, just giving them a hug, and just you can see that they have made an effort to bring in outside help, which I think is really cool.
That was one great thing that came out of COVID was, being able to have Zoom, right? And know how to use that and be able to connect with more people online, especially for support groups now. So, even if you're living in a small town and you feel like you don't have community, there's always online support, which I think is really important because isolation for caregivers is a silent killer.
And then the other couple, Melissa and Kevin, this was an early onset Alzheimer's case. One of them got a breathe tattoo just to sort of commemorate their journey.
Yeah.
Have you done anything like that? Like any sort of commemorative moments?
I wrote a book.
That's true. You know what? You did the ultimate. That's the ultimate tattoo.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what have I done? Oh yeah, I did that.
You really see the journey there.
And it's so nice for this family to be able to have that. Who's that? Is that their young child?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And you could see, they're still having fun, and it's sweet.
Life doesn't stop because you get a dementia diagnosis, and I think that this stigma around this disease we really need to put an end to that, because I think just because you get a diagnosis, it's a terrible diagnosis. No one wants the diagnosis, and we don't want that for our loved ones. But also there is still joy to be had, and you can see that the love is there, and then you just learn and grow into this new chapter of your life. It looks different for everyone, right? You just got to find what works. Thank you for sharing.